Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Why AI. In this episode, I'm joined by Shelly Sanchez. Shelly is an EdTech specialist, teacher, consultant, author, public speaker, and much, much more. On the episode today, we're going to go into her background in EdTech, her views on AI, and also give some insight to the topic of AI in education as a whole. So I hope you enjoy. Shelley, you're a teacher, an educator. So as far as I'm aware, you do quite a lot with language learning. Is that correct?
I do a lot with e-learning. I'm an e-learning
Okay.
specialist, and then also I do work. I'm a U.S. Ambassador um, for TESOL, TESOL ambassador. I think my robot stopped talking here. So
The AI.
exactly.
Yeah, brilliant, perfect timing. Yeah. So how did you sort of get into it then? Can we start there? So how did you kind of get into being an educator and getting into ed tech, if you like?
So around 2009,
Yeah.
before that, I had just moved to Germany as part of
Oh,
the Air Force. And so at the time, I was teaching abroad. And when I was teaching abroad, I felt very isolated. My
wow,
institute
right.
had very few teachers compared to I had a huge, amazing school that I came from. And
Okay.
so I started doing online trainings because my students got me into education technology. I'm very interested.
Right.
And so I started hosting free ones on a platform that was called EduFire. And then I
Okay.
got very popular. And so now I've published 4 books about education technology. Two are now
Yeah.
still available. And then I've been invited to over 20 countries to present,
Wow.
speak, work with schools, actually stay long periods of time,
Yeah.
and then just help teachers and even the students,
That's
learn how
fantastic.
to use it responsibly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Have you got any personal preferences of where you've been? Is there any highlights off the
Yes,
top of the
so
head?
my favorites are definitely Barcelona. I love Barcelona.
Wonderful place. Wonderful
Spain,
place.
just Spain in general. It's
Yeah.
really relaxed, laid back. One of the great things I love about, especially Barcelona is every time I visit it, like you see during the lunch break, people with slacks and they're just rolled up and they're sitting at the beach and they're sitting and eating. And I'm just amazed, like that kind of culture that
Mm,
allows that it's okay during your lunch break to go with your friends on the beach and then just roll up your sleeves and take
yeah.
that time. And I really appreciate that a lot. But I did love Thailand as well. It's a very
Yes.
happy culture. So
Mm.
any country that kind of promotes or area that promotes wellness, I love.
Yes. Fantastic. Yeah. No, obviously Spain is quite close to where we are. So it's probably like the number one sort of holiday destination. I'm going a little bit later this year. So it's no, it's fantastic. It feels like again, I don't know if I can't talk for where you are, but over here, even sort of all day it's work and I mean I love it. I love getting into work, but they do have a very laid back culture and it is brilliant to see. So I mean, just in regards to the ed tech side of things and just sort of weaning in the AI perspective. How have you found it in regards to, obviously, AI has been around for quite some time now, but it's only really got heavy, I suppose, if in lighter words, in the last sort of 6 months or so. How have you found it in your line of work? How has it impacted you?
So I feel sort of back in 96. So in 96 I graduated, went to college, and there was a whole entire studio of computers back then with the World Wide Web. Like I'm
Yes.
dating myself, but I really did, like, it's kind of that same kind of, almost that same surreal experience, like wow, I have all these
Mm,
toys and I can build websites and just going wild. And I think it's almost having almost an impact as well. If you've experienced that, where there was no worldwide web, and then it was available to all the public. And
Yeah.
now the same thing with AI. That's what it is. It's been there, machine learning, for so long, but now it's accessible, and
Mm.
accessibility makes such a huge impact. There's so many amazing things you can do. So now, even though I have my books that I've published for education, my first book was poetry and
Right.
art.
Oh,
And
wow.
now
Okay.
I'm trying to go into mind journey and like all these things where I'm a really good writer. I'm good at that.
Yeah.
But art, not so great. But with something like that, like mid journey and stuff like that, like you can be that, like you can have all these ideas in your head. And even kids now, they're coding, they're using AI to produce games even at 11 years
Yeah.
old that are going viral. There's just so many possibilities. And so that's, for me, that's really what it's opened up. Like now all my creativity, like I'm not limited, I have hope,
Absolutely.
so I
Yeah.
think
No,
that's
that's
really exciting.
yeah, definitely. It's a great way of looking at it. I mean, how do you feel like it's going to impact the way that teachers teach, for example? I mean, obviously that's a very vague question. I appreciate that, but it's already starting to change things. As in the last 6 months, if you're remotely present on Twitter in regard to EdTech, you can see the impact that it's having. But how do you personally feel about the way the impact that it's going to have on the way that teachers teach?
Well, I think the big there, and it's always this, and this is even when I started training with ed tech. And um, you always you meet a lot that are very have anxiety about it and very
Mhm.
anxious because they don't know it. And
Mhm.
that's normal with all people. The unfamiliar territory scares them.
Yeah,
And then
change is
the
a bit
way
daunting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then the way they have seen it, the experience is negative, like, oh, they're cheating with it. My
Mm,
students are cheating or trying. Um, but I kind of feel like once you introduce teachers to it, if there's more AI, training, integration, which I've seen a lot of peers, Tom Barrett and a lot of others. Have been able to help teachers out, and I think they start seeing the potential and possibilities. But then you have this other way where some schools and even colleges have banned it. And I think that the teachers who come from an environment of that where it's not welcomed, it's banned, and they're taught to fear it and all of this, I think that's going to be those areas are going to have the most like negative impact.
mm,
But when it comes to like teachers who really kind of dive in, get to know it, and learn how their students can use it in very positive ways, that's going to
yeah.
be such an amazing and profound impact because their students are going to be impacted by AI. Their industry will.
Yeah, of course.
It's more powerful to learn and know it, or else their jobs may be in danger, their students and their future and all of that. So,
Absolutely.
um, it just really kind of depends on the area and the approach taken, I think,
Mm,
which will show like flourishing versus, kind of closed and
yeah.
potentially, people could lose jobs because of
Mm.
that.
I mean, like you said about, 11-year-olds being able to, going viral of coding and things like that. I mean, that is very much I don't want to say you could thank AI, but it definitely helps and it makes all of that side of things a lot more accessible. Yeah, even myself, I'm doing things that I just wouldn't be able to think of doing without AI. It's because it's that easy and
Absolutely.
it's that simple. I'm not trying to pass anything off as my own, by the way. I'm
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
but it gives you that tool, I believe, and I think that is a very quite a powerful thing, really. And in the sense of if you've got these 11-year-old kids who are doing these unbelievable things with coding, what about the ones who don't have access to AI? Where does that leave them? And I think, like, just to sort of go off what you said, it may create a bit of disparity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that word disparity there,
Mm.
and equity as well. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in regards to just sort of language learning and sort of educating, so I believe it's sort of, as English as a foreign language, is that something that you sort of come into yourself and been involved with?
Yes, absolutely. And already, I mean, they have so many different acronyms now.
Mm,
I think the most current one is multilingual learner. So
okay, right. Sorry, I might be a bit behind the times.
no problem. No, it'll change. It's gonna be different when this podcast airs. It's gonna be
Yeah,
something else. So
yeah. Brilliant. So have you found any resource, like AI resources, AI tools that have sort of crept into that circle?
yes, so the language learning community is just powerful with this. There's a good colleague of mine, Nick Peachy. He's
Okay.
in the UK, but he has been sharing a lot as well with AI. There's someone I believe in Poland. Her name is Svetlana, and she does. So
Okay.
there's a bunch of us that have actually come together with this. And one of the reasons why is because, we teach at university levels too. So now I'm in public education, but usually when you teach abroad and you have university level students, and that's been my experience as well, especially internationally.
Mm,
Um, and before teaching in public education here in Texas, but um, with that, they're the ones writing papers, and then all the AI tools you find, and then that the ones that actually do detect, whether they say they detect, they can't really,
no.
detect. But with language learners, is specifically a problem because they automatically um, don't understand the way language learners write essays. And so any language learner essay automatically comes out as that it was made with AI. And so that's definitely a big
Right.
issue. Yeah. So it's been a big warning to potential teachers who may, or professors who may think that they're, trying to check, and really the
Getting ahead
student
of the
isn't.
curve.
Yeah,
Mm,
it just doesn't understand, it's machine learning, so it hasn't really graded all the papers I have, that was written by different, levels of speaking
mm.
and writing. The other part is there's a lot of tools out there, like there's that are amazing for learners. One was YouTube AI converter, and so what that one does is that one takes YouTube, it transcribes in all different languages. I had a teacher when I shared it like quite a few months ago, and a teacher came up from Croatia, and that's one of the countries I
Wow.
traveled and worked with
Mhm.
teachers and their students, and they told me that the translation in Croatian was very good. Like it
Oh,
was
right. Okay.
almost on par. So it was really great feedback. Learning from a lot of teachers from different countries
Yeah.
that follow me or that I've worked with, tell me the translation is pretty spot on. So
Wow.
that's really great. There's some that will fix your pronunciation, like you can work with the tool, chat bots where students can
That's
have conversation. I mean,
mm,
it's just amazing. All
sort
the
of
great ways that language learners can use AI.
yeah, I just sort of learning where their weaknesses are perhaps in certain areas, and then sort of being able to sort of build on that. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what kind of separates it all, isn't it? Because you can get materials, and the materials have been around for a long time, but having it personalized, that's what's going to sort of separate it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, do you believe that AI has, I mean, it seems like you do, so it might be a bit of a silly question, but do you believe that it's got more positive impacts than it does negative impacts? And, what do you think are on both sides of that coin?
I do believe it has a lot. So I always, preface this by saying it just depends on the approach. So those schools that are open and the leadership that is more open to seeing the potential, they're going to see the possibilities and potential. And
Mm.
those group of students and learners are going to be prepared for a future where even now the industries are choosing, it's cheaper to do AI.
Yeah.
So, if it goes between having to see whether or not like your AI they have to see what's more valuable. And
Mhm.
so I do believe like those students who have been equipped to work with it, who can do like produce 1,000 more writings or everything because they've learned how to manage it, but also stay creative. It's their still their ideas. It's not like
Yeah.
a machine that's, just and they're carrying it off like you said as their own.
Yeah.
But they've used it in a very smart way to do things that would be like their personal assistant or something.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's going to be just huge potential and powerful. And the other thing is, it's going to be able to get those teachers to be able to help their students. And I think that's the part we need to get to. Unfortunately, I don't know if many are going to get to that point. I really do hope so. And I hope that's
Mm.
why, these interviews, having a podcast like this is so important, is to get teachers to a point where AI and ethics is kind of goes hand in hand, that we're teaching
Mhm.
our students the ethical use, because for so long with mobile devices we saw that they kept banning them in schools, banning, and now social media as well, ban, and now we have this big thing where there's generations of kids who have no ethical or moral
Mm.
ideas about, or haven't even been broached the question in an education setting to even be able to come up with their own moral compass or their own like, hey, this device is taking over my life. Maybe I
Yeah.
should use screen. I mean, and all of that is part of having that ethics involved. And that's really shied away from schools, and I really hope that it approaches that way, because we do need to, have
Mm.
students be aware. Hey, you're putting all your information in a machine.
Yeah.
One day it could come back, and
Yeah.
there's just really big, data and
Yeah.
privacy, and that's not going to be taken care of by
No.
banning or anything like that. So,
Yeah, I think demonizing it is the wrong thing to do, isn't it? I don't want to be as absolute as that, but it seems teaching and in moderation and in specific ways, it's a brilliant tool to have. It's I mean, if I don't know a question, I don't know about you, but pretty much always the first thing I do is get my phone out and Google it. Mostly, I'll maybe try and test myself and see if I've got it somewhere in there, but most of the time you go into you grab your phone out your pocket, or if you've got a laptop in front of you, you'll Google it. I mean, but it's like you say, especially in a school and like in a learning environment, you've got to have it in moderation. But ultimately, it's still there, though, isn't it? So it's best to teach that. And if AI is going to be something that sticks around, which I think I can't see any reason why it wouldn't, especially at the moment. But that sort of leads me on to my next topic of conversation with you, Shelley. I mean, do you believe that it's got the test of time? Do you think it'll stand the test of time?
absolutely. And machine
Mhm.
learning has always been there. It's just more accessible. So, the technology, when it's always been there for, years and years and years, and then we give it to the people, we've seen like what, social media, social networking, and just how that's grown and gotten more popular. You give things
Mhm.
to the hands of people, and it just grows and is so dynamic and really amazing, wonderful things, but then also really um important things that we have to look at, important dangers that we have to look at, and those
Yeah.
are already popping out. You see the rappers who they have, remixing other, audio and things they never sang before. They were
Mm.
creating tools, and
Yeah.
it's really kind of interesting because already on my radio station, I do a lot of long drives, and
Okay.
my radio station has even um, kind of has had, I hear some of the songs and they'll say this was an AI, concoction or whatever of two, and that, this very famous person got upset or over this,
Yeah.
and you hear this,
Mm.
and I just think already, that's something, and that's just going to end up happening more. And so,
Yeah.
I do believe it's going to definitely be there because it's already affecting really
Mm.
popular industries like the music industry,
Absolutely.
programming, all of this. So
Mm.
definitely it's going to stay there for the long haul. And how much, like, eventually it's going to get to a point if we don't teach our students, like, hey, it's not cool to, make fake video, we're
Yeah.
just going to have a lot of things we have to deal with in the future if those, if we don't teach and help them learn, like, hey, there are some implications of this that,
Mm.
you have to use it responsibly.
Yeah, especially with how seamless it's becoming as well in regards to the
Absolutely.
the artificial the voices and how I've seen a lot of different politicians voices and things like that, and they are, if you played me the video and didn't tell me it was AI, I would have 100%. I mean, my ears, obviously, I'm sure that people will have figured it out, but it's so hard to tell, and that's just gonna, especially the more it learns and the more the more information it gets fed, that's going to become more and more seamless. So,
Absolutely.
it's
And it's not programmers like we always think like, oh, the technology is by hackers, and no, it's by
no,
everyday like, kids that watch TikTok or
yeah,
things like that, and they're doing it. Like that 11-year-old who made the Harry Potter game with AI and it went viral. He was 11 and
it's,
it had just come out. Like ChatGPT was a few months and he just made it. So
yeah.
it's
It partners at the end of the day. Humans beings still have a lot of creativity. It's not it's taking away that. Partnering it together is quite a fun looking thing. Um, so in sort of your opinion, and if you were to talk to, for example, an educator or a teacher who's not not familiar with AI and they want to familiar themselves with AI, how would you what advice would you give? Do you have any tools or any sort of tips that you'd sort of give to them?
absolutely. There's and I know a lot of people are weary kind of about Twitter and what's happening.
Mhm,
LinkedIn has a really great community of AI. And it's not just educators. There's a lot of developers on there. There's those that are professors that have, degrees in programming and have been part of the process of building AI. And they show so many visuals and things like that. And
mhm.
it's really amazing. The AI educator, and that's with Dan Fitzgerald. He runs a free, even like a Facebook group, all these webinars. Tom Barrett, I mentioned
Yeah,
earlier,
Tom Merritt.
language learning, Nick Peachy. But these kind of, even if they just look up AI and start, there's so much great information. I would say specifically on LinkedIn that comes out that
Mhm,
it's just right on, spot on, and I think it's because it has that intellectuals. It's not just educators who are testing it and learning, but it's those that are in ed tech in general that have like a coding background or programming
mhm,
as well, and they're all part of the conversation, and they're open to share the resources and talk about the ethics, and so I think that would be my first step, is getting on board with something like that. I
yeah.
believe it is called the AI. They can look it up, but it's I think it's Dan Fitz tweets, but
Dan Fitz
he
tweets.
runs
Mhm,
a bunch, and it's called the AI Educator. And
yeah,
so I would get in those newsletters. Tom Barrett, he has the prompt craft,
yeah.
and so I would just get in those groups. They're free. They have free webinars and
That's a
so many free
brilliant thing.
materials.
That's
Yeah,
that's
it's really
fantastic.
wonderful.
Yeah, brilliant. So I mean, do you have anything that you would like to say just as we're before we wrap up here, Shelley? Is there anything that you would like to tell the listeners, tell the audience?
Well, I do believe, AI can help in so many ways. I'm very much about wellness and technology and how we compare it together. So, how technology can make our lives easier, but also, like, what is the ethics of it? And I think that's so important for our students. My daughter's 6, so even now, we use things and I introduce her to them and machine learning and all of that. So that way she understands, but we have those conversations after. Okay, so
Mhm.
what could this mean? You just did a drawing, the AI animated your drawing. What would you like the AI to potentially be able to do? So that way she gets her brain thinking. And I think we need
Okay.
students to think about that. Like, how can we use whatever technology, whatever it is, to do great things, to make a big impact on life? Because now any person in the world has access to millions,
Mm.
potentially, to get
Yeah.
their ideas and creativity. And we need to see it like that, like the potential of technology. Um, and then to make them think and stop and pause. Okay, I just created this thing, I just did this thing with the technology. Now, what are the dangers or things that I have to be aware of? A, it just took my data. What if it uses, it's just a
Mm.
simple drawing, but what if it goes and it makes $1 million, it makes a bunch of books off of this.
Yeah.
Somebody else, yeah, which
So
some of these
worry.
things are
Yeah.
happening exactly. So,
Yeah.
it just, or what if it takes that drawing and puts, my head on it and starts
Hmm.
making a joke, and I can't stop it, from going viral. So
Yeah.
these are really some things that I think, we just have to be aware of that, especially as teachers. We have that burden, like a
Hmm.
responsibility to get our students to always pause and think with any technology, how it can make their lives better, but also, how they can use it to be
Mm.
effective, profound, and just to make a positive impact
Yeah.
um, in the world.
Fantastic. Well, Shelley, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's been a great being on your show, and thank you so much
Yeah.
for hosting shows like this so that
Yes,
way people really
absolutely.
think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a Twitter that you want to Twitter user handle? Any sort of socials that you want to just put out there, and we'll pop them in.
Everything, yes, absolutely. Everything's at Shell Terrell or Shelly Terrell, and
Brilliant.
on all platforms
Yeah,
they can find me.
fantastic. And we'll be tagging you in everything that we do. Yeah,
Thank
brilliant.
you so much.
Okay, no problem. Brilliant.